Welcome back to Down the Line, the podcast where we take small moments from today and read them as signals of tomorrow. My name is Mich and I'm a futurist. Not the flying car kind, the kind who studies the early ripples of change that shape how we live, work, and stay human. Today's episode's called Measure What Matters, and we're stepping into a question that sits right at the heart of modern life. What happens to our humanity when everything we do is tracked and measured? I've worked in sales for many years. Although there's been lots of periods where things were difficult, I remember a specific time around 15 years ago when my team and I went through a specifically difficult patch. We sat down and developed a set of metrics that we believed would turn the tide, over and above what the organization required. And then we tracked our execution of them. It wasn't long before we caught up and excelled again. During this time, we encouraged each other with words like what gets measured gets done and what gets rewarded gets repeated. So, from experience, I know that targeted tracking works. But lately, I picked up a sense of measurement fatigue from people in my environment. That feeling remained with me until earlier this week when I had a day that just made me sit up and really take notice. I didn't sleep great the night before, and I woke up at the normal time. But from the onset, I just knew it was going to be one of those days where you never catch up. I reached for my phone while still in bed, even though I know I shouldn't. But let's be honest, we've all done that sometimes. And before my first sip of coffee, I already had a full report card on me. My Aura ring had been busy while I slept. It told me exactly how the night went. It scored my overall sleep, broken down into my deep sleep, the cycle of my REM sleep, my heart rate variability, and whether the last 2 weeks' sleep was trending in the right direction or not. Even my stress readiness for the day was indicated. Before I even stood up, my body had already been converted into data points. A little later, my calendar reminded me about an early health appointment. Another scan, another set of numbers just waiting to be captured. By mid-morning, Discovery Vitality chimed in with its familiar tone. Congratulations on hitting your exercise goal for the week. Yes! Naturally, I check in and check the rest. My driving score, my weekly spend patterns, and my overall vitality points that becomes my status, which shapes what I earn back next year. And then something new popped up, a personal pathway suggestion. It was time to go to the dentist. And if I go within the next 2 weeks, I'll get 500 rands back in my health fund. Later that day, I met my wife for lunch. We logged into the bank and we tracked our spending. We also looked at our healthy foods purchases and we celebrated the points that we've received as a result. As I was busy eating, my wife was tracking the carbs, the refined sugars, and the proteins that we were consuming. At some point, my phone reminded me how many hours I'd spent on social media this week, and I just knew I had to be better. Strava chipped in with a nudge about how my fitness levels were lower than what it was the previous month, and I reminded myself to take a run later. Apple Photos popped up with a memory from 2017, and I realized that the family hasn't been spending enough time together. We needed to go camping. Later that afternoon in the office, my smartwatch buzzed to remind me to stand up. What do you mean stand up? I'm running at full tilt here. I couldn't help but wonder, am I living my life or am I just tracking it? Somewhere between all the alerts and nudges and dashboard check-ins, I finally made that dentist appointment. And that's what gave me the pause. Because would I have gone otherwise? Or am I slowly outsourcing decisions to a system that nudges me, rewards me, and shapes my behavior in ways I barely notice? Even if those nudges are good for me, because what if they're not? And that thought followed me through into the evening. When things had settled down a bit, I picked up a book I often return to, Ikigai, which is the Japanese framing of a long and meaningful life. And suddenly that tension just felt obvious. In the blue zones, no one checks their deep sleep score in the morning. No one tracks their heart rate variability or their step count or the time they spend on social media apps. No one gets a digital pathway suggestion telling them it's time to go for a colonoscopy. They live close to nature, close to their communities, connected to purpose in a way that doesn't need a reminder or a metric. They move because life requires it. They rest because the body asks for it. So, in a world where almost everything can be measured, tracked, scored, or nudged, what happens to the parts of life that can't be or simply aren't? That question has a history because we didn't just land here overnight. For most of our history, tracking was simple. In the agricultural era, we watched the sun. We worked in annual cycles, sowing and reaping according to the season. During the industrial era, we built clocks and we organized our lives around them. We worked in shifts. We traveled according to schedules. Instead of the seasons, we started tracking seconds, minutes, and hours. The early 90s brought affordable computing and basic sensors. For the first time, we captured the data that we measured, and everyday behavior became data at scale. The real revolution happened in 2007 with the launch of the iPhone, which made tracking personal. Suddenly, we all had GPSs in our pockets, and tracking became mainstream. Running apps, food logging, early sleep trackers. The 2010s brought the boom of wearables, Fitbit, Garmin, Apple Watch, all enabled by the latest smartphone. At the same time, companies realized that behavior equates risk. Manage the behavior, reduce the risk. And we saw an increase in usage-based insurance and spend scoring and workplace monitoring. Tracking became corporate leverage. 2019, the pandemic hit, and we needed a new type of tracking because for the first time in human history or recent history, humans couldn't go to the office, and companies felt as if they lost control. This resulted in keyboard tracking, screen monitoring, productivity analytics, even tools that measure focus and attention. What began as a temporary solution to manage remote teams normalized in a place where digital busyness became a proxy for trust, for performance, and even for employee value. After COVID, devices, apps, employers, and service providers all started talking to each other in a digital ecosystem, and life became trackable end to end. Which brings us to today, where AI is making it possible to move from tracking to interpretation to the ability to respond and shape behavior in real time. The system isn't only talking back, it now initiates conversations. And my dentist appointment nudge is a good example of that. Okay, so let's pause. Tracking scaled because it served two powerful forces. The first is it generated profit, and the second is it gave people and organizations a way to manage uncertainty in an ever faster changing world. By managing behaviors, insurers have fewer claims, banks have lower default risk, employers reduce inefficiency, and individuals get to harvest discounts and rewards once they do the correct thing. So behind every nudge, score, or prompt, there's this incentive engine that's humming in the background. If we zoom out, what I'm experiencing and maybe what you're experiencing is potentially part of a much bigger shift. The first part is the datafication of life where we catch everything as a number. So this is not new, but what has changed is the ways and devices we now use and the speed with which we capture data and then turn it into insights. The second is the increased desire for control from humans, because as the world gets more complex, we want more of a handle on it. And then the third shift is from continuous measurement to continuous judgment. And that's what AI brought, as it puts everything into this mix and then the system responds and shapes behavior as it observes it. Let's dive deeper beneath the dashboards. And here I want to introduce my word of the day, panopticon. What a word, panopticon. Imagine a circular prison with all the cells arranged on the rim looking inward. And then there's this single guard tower in the center. And from that tower, the guard could potentially see into every cell. But the real psychological power is this. The prisoners cannot see inside the tower. So they never know if a guard is actually watching them at any given moment. Meaning, they behave as if they are being watched all the time, even if the tower is empty. Real control doesn't require constant surveillance. It only requires the possibility of surveillance. If we think we're being monitored, we adjust our behavior automatically. We become our own gods. What else could be sitting in this? One, identity reduction. We start believing we are our numbers. I slept so badly, I'm tired. I didn't eat my steps, so I failed today. Or I made my targets, so I'm a success. Two, data-driven inequality. Are those that cannot afford to buy into the system or buy the wearables being left behind? Inequality is not a small issue in South Africa. 3, the thing we don't talk enough about, the psychological fatigue of being measured all the time. Constant evaluation, even if gentle, creates that low-level vigilance in the nervous system. We begin to expect assessment. We start optimizing every moment. We lose spontaneity or the freedom to have a bad day. Let's take a step back. 2 questions. Are corporate ecosystems building modern panopticons? And by extension, are we doing it to ourselves? I'm talking about dashboards, banking behavior scores, workplace analytics, sales KPIs, remote work monitoring tools. Systems that watch, nudge, and shape behavior before we even notice it's happening. 2, where are the guardrails? For decades, we trusted institutions to protect us. They were the referees. But as technology accelerated, institutions didn't. And we can't blame them because tech runs while institutions crawl. And while they were finding their feet, the private sector sprinted ahead, capturing data, influence, and behavioral insights at scale. And now, many people feel more tracked than protected. This new environment of tracking needs response promises more control. But what could we be sacrificing? Autonomy? Creativity? Participation? Let's go futuring. Imagine this first possible future, one where tracking matures. We're still monitored in many parts of daily life, but the system around us become more transparent. In this future, institutions put proper guardrails in place. Early signs of this future is already visible, and we see it in examples like the UK's Data Use and Access Act of 2025 or the EU's Health Data Space Regulation, indicating small steps towards transparency and user rights. In this future, industry self-regulates, not perfectly, but enough to create a healthier balance of power. We still get nudges, we still get dashboards, but we also get clearer choices and clearer rules about how our data is being used. Because of that, we have a better chance of managing the outcomes. Simplified, this future means we're informed, not manipulated. We don't drift into this future. We have to work towards it intentionally. In a second future, tracking quietly takes over. Everything's monitored all the time. Access to services start to depend on how you behave. Workplace oversight becomes constant and automated. And the small nudges we barely notice today slowly evolve into guiding choices, habits, even beliefs. Daily life begins to tighten around behavioral scoring. Creativity dulls. Institutions fall further behind while corporations take the lead. Without realizing it, people shift from being users to being behavioral products that's optimized for risk predictability and compliance. We don't design this future on purpose, but it could be the one we drift into if we stop paying attention. Maybe this is the moment for a pause because right now we're possibly treating AI like it's a software update, something to bolt onto the old world to make it run a little faster. But think back to phones before smartphones. We didn't get a breakthrough by strapping apps onto a BlackBerry. Transformation happened when someone asked a different question. What if we redesign the entire experience from the ground up? Which leads us to that third possible future, the redesigned future. In this future, we don't throw technology away and we don't pretend tracking will vanish. Instead, we take everything we've learned, the tools, the data, the insights, and we rebuild the system around a different purpose. We keep what's genuinely useful, the health insights, the early warnings, the behavioral patterns that help us understand ourselves better. We remove what's harmful, the manipulative nudges, the unclear scorings, the incentives that shape behavior without consent. And we add what's newly possible, systems that learn with us, not about us. AI that adapts to our values rather than our vulnerabilities. And environments that support human thriving instead of human tracking. In this future, technology works with us. Imagine, your data helps you prevent illness instead of justifying premiums. Your trends help you make better choices that leads to better outcomes, not just better scores. Your tools amplify creativity rather than shrinking it. And autonomy expands because the system is built to protect it. In this future, human thriving becomes the design principle. This also isn't the future we drift into. It's the one we create and design and assemble piece by piece. Let's bring this home. We've explored where tracking came from, where it is now, and we imagine three possible futures that we might be heading towards. Underneath all of it sits a simple truth. Tracking isn't our destiny. Our choices about tracking are. If you serve customers in retail, healthcare, finance, or tech, you stand at a critical fault line between the convenience customers want and the trust they desperately need. Your customers aren't data points. They're humans making decisions in a complex, unpredictable, and difficult world. Use your data and insight to remove friction. Design experiences that make people feel understood. Be transparent about how you use customer data. Reward loyalty meaningfully, not manipulatively. When people feel respected, informed, and in control, loyalty becomes the natural outcome of trust rather than the product of nudges. You know what? The growth you need will take care of itself. That is the redesign. If you lead people, whether you're a manager, an executive, or a founder, you sit at another fault line, the one between the old world of work and the one that's emerging now. In the old world, it made sense to track, but things have changed. And here's the opportunity most organizations miss. Your employees are the primary drivers of your organization's future. If they thrive, your company thrives. If they stagnate, your company plateaus. If they burn out, the organization pays the price. Be careful to track things that kill creativity. Creativity is the last unfair advantage in an automated world. It's the one human capability machines cannot duplicate, only amplify. Creativity and autonomy goes hand in hand. Build trust into your systems from the start. If you want innovation, measure energy, clarity, flow, and belonging, because these are the things that drive it, not dashboards. Use data to remove friction, not to tighten control. Use analytics to understand how work is done, not how to surveil it. Be radically transparent. Explain and discuss the why behind what you measure. Design environments where performance becomes a natural outcome of well-being. The organizations that win the next decade will be the ones with the most thriving humans that are supported by technology, not shaped by it. That is the redesign. For all of us, the humans navigating daily life, as you move through the next few days, ask yourself, who owns my data and what are they doing with it? Who benefits when I'm nudged? What assumptions sit behind the metrics I trust? Does this tool make me more human or less? And what am I quietly outsourcing without noticing? These questions are meant to keep us awake in a world that's becoming more automated and optimized. Tracking can genuinely help us, but it can also chip away at autonomy, flatten creativity, and turn life into a set of dashboards. So your role is simple. Keep parts of your life offline. Use data as a guide, not a master. Stay rooted in human moments, conversations, nature, laughter, silence. Protect your unpredictability. And remember your ikigai. People thrive not because they track their lives, but because they live them deeply, purposefully. Until next time, happy futuring.